Who's going to give us the word to start?
I think Bob should do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did you say
Or
I
maybe,
should start?
okay.
We were just wondering who was going to give the cue to start.
Yes, it's being recorded. I see it now, so you can start.
You we ready to start?
Mhm.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
Barbara going to give me the thumb. Go ahead.
Yes, you may start.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Welcome to the Black and Green. Welcome to the Black Green. Okay. Sorry. Welcome to the Black and Green Wednesday program on February 3rd, 2021 on self-sustained community development versus gentrification. The background to this program is that in the past 50 years, whole sections of the city all over the country has been deliberately bled to death. Once vibrant communities like St. Louis Northside and some areas in Kansas City, Missouri now resemble ghost towns that mirror the tragic compounding effects of systemic racism, ongoing governmental corruption, economic disinvestment, and long-term neglect. Large areas are already blighted or slated for redevelopment if city governments had their way. The program is co-sponsored by the Gateway Green Alliance, Green Party of St. Louis, Green Party of Missouri, Kansas City Green Party, Universal African Peoples Organization, and the American People's Socialist Party. I am Coffee Wright with Universal African People Organization, and I will be moderating the Zoom tonight. We have 4 people giving presentations of up to 10 minutes each, and they will have their discussion with the audience. So we have the 5 guiding questions for our panel. What should self-sustained and viable neighborhoods look like? Why does it take to turn, what does it take to turn neighborhoods back into vibrant areas that serve their residents instead of enriching developers? What role and do reparations play in this context? How can we stem gentrification? Where and how do we start to accomplish these goals? Those are the questions, family. We have with us appearing is Herdosha Kambayi Bentham, Tony Saper, Walai Amusa, and Tashara Masimba. So, okay, well, let's begin. Our first guest speaker tonight goes is Herdosha Kalambaya Bentham. She is a St. Louis City automatic candidate for 3rd Ward and has been endorsed by the Gateway Green Alliance.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that introduction. And I just really want to express my deepest appreciation for being invited here to have this much needed conversation, but we have to move beyond conversation in a very extreme way to bring about the necessary leadership that we need to address this huge elephant on the north side. So my name is Herdosha Kalumbai Bentham, and I am running for the 3rd Ward Alderwoman. And with your support and your endorsement, I am that much closer to making that happen. You know, when we talk about gentrification, I just want to say gentrification is genocide. And we are experiencing genocide and gentrification all through the north side. And fastly, the North County as well. And all these things are occurring because we have greedy politicians that are in the hands and in the pockets of big developers, and we all know it. And, you know, we have been seeing this for a while. And so when we even have this conversation, I believe that it's very important for us to start at a place to understanding that the worst crime to humanity is poverty. So when we see the conditions of the North Side and we see the conditions of, you know, Black and brown people, we see a whole social system that bleeds the blood of the African working class workers in general. And so I believe that one of the things on my platform is my first point is reparations. And so I believe that when we talking about, creating economic, we first have to understand that reparations is a must. Like, we have to pay reparations. And a lot of people, first thing when they hear that word is, where's the money gonna come from? Well, first of all, we see that in our budget, the 2021 budget, the police has been allotted $177 million. And I'm saying we need to redirect those resources. $120 million need to be redirected to go towards a program for the LRA, where we can build, give resources and help help the residents in the third ward to be homeowners. We need to really create a program that can promote home ownership. But you can't ask people that are living under, $20 a day to buy a home with no plan on how they're going to secure that. Home ownership is going to bring people to understanding that, this is our community. So in a nutshell, what am I saying? I'm saying that I want to be an alder person because I am not a politician. I'm an activist, and I have been on the grounds organizing all over the north side, and I live in the third ward, in creating the process where we bring the workers back into political life that they've been shoved out of. Black people didn't just decide to stop voting because they didn't want to. I didn't vote because I was lazy, or I just didn't want to go to the polls, or I didn't understand my ancestors fought hard for me to have the right to vote. That's not why I didn't vote. I didn't vote because I seen all these greedy politicians doing whatever the hell they want, and I didn't feel that I wanted to contribute or be a part of the process to continue to help them to bleed my community dry. And so people such as myself and other people have to be brought back into this whole conversation that they've been shoved out of. And they shoved out of this whole thing. Only reason why we are having a conversation, and a lot of people now are understanding about the spy planes, is because of people that's not even in office or bringing these things to the light. But the older people are never connected to the people that's in their ward when they making these decisions that's going to affect our life. So when we talk about economics, everything is concentrated economics. You can't have a conversation about economics unless we talk about our schools. We can't have a conversation about economics unless we talk about the food desert that we live in. So everything that we are involved in and how we see in our community is all economic crises, because we have greedy politicians that do not serve or work for the people that they represent, but they work for their self and their pockets and big developers. And so to overturn this, we have to be courageous enough to support leaders such as myself and Chachaura Masimba that's running in the 21st ward. We have to move beyond just liking people. And if the people are not doing the job for all of the people in their community, I say we living in revolutionary times. So we have to come to revolutionary conclusions, and we have to put the right people in office to bring about the necessary change that have to happen, or we won't have a north side, and at least one that we remember. And it will be extremely hard for us to be able to even own a piece of property, because I guarantee you it will look just like the south side of Chicago and other areas that have been completely gentrified. So I just really appreciate my opportunity to speak on this much needed issue. And I really appreciate the Green Party for having this conversation. And I really believe that with all of us united, that we can bring the necessary change. And that's what excites me in this period today, that someone from Walnut Park, just like me, that live in the third ward today, from my background, can run against an empire and fight like hell for people like the Green Party that endorsed me and others that have supported me along the way, so I can go down to the chambers of all the people and fight for the people. We deserve the best, because on the north side, we are good people. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, we really appreciate everything you just shared with us. Thank you so much for that. Okay, well, next we'll hear from Tony Saper. He is the city council member for Ward 1 in North Kansas City, Missouri.
Hello, everyone. We have to be clear that gentrification is going on, and what it means is that the large-scale developers, investors, real estate interests are stealing our public money. And this has been going on for a long time. But one thing I want to call everyone's attention to, so I don't run out of time, is a terrific study by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties on TIF. That's one of the many alphabet labels for how public money is funneled to private developers who come into communities, displace people who are there, and create gentrification in the process. But what they're trying to really do is make money. And they take a lot of public money to do that. And the League of Women Voters that I study is an incredibly detailed and in-depth analysis of that. And one of the things I want to share with people is what is known here as their Citizens Benefit Scorecard. You really can't see it, but I will go through a little bit of it and provide a link to it if people want to email me. What it is 10 things that they think have to be included in any kind of review of any of these many millions, tens of millions of dollars of tax breaks that are going. One is that all incentives be used as tools to improve the economic status of the citizens living there, including persons who are unemployed, underemployed, and those with disabilities, medical and health challenges. And a pledge to union jobs in all the construction. And workforce preparedness programs. And tax incentive decision-making processes will have to have proportional representation from the affected taxing jurisdictions. Many of these TIP and other benefits steal money from our schools and other public entities by giving those tax breaks, which means the money is not going to them. And developers will have to negotiate benefit agreements with citizens groups and labor before they're approved by any city. And they will have to include open meeting spaces for nonprofit and civic organizations as part of any development they want to propose. And developers need to focus on providing affordable housing for those at or below the average median income. I always have trouble with the idea of affordable housing because if you're a millionaire, all housing is affordable. If you're working at minimum wage or less, as many people in the food service industry do, none of it is. What we need is low cost housing, and that has to be included in any project. And all projects must include a provision that allow for voter registration and citizen ballot initiatives on their sites. They can't lock us out from going in there to petition and to agitate. Now, where I'm from in North Kansas City, I don't know if many of you know about it. It's a really small town, about 4,500 people, located just across the Missouri River from downtown Kansas City. It's an odd little town in a way because while the people who live here aren't rich, the city is. It's not only does it have a city of 4,500 people, but about 25,000 people work here during the day. The city has also got its own casino, a Harrah's. And the city has actually owns a 600-bed hospital and health system. The money is there and the developers are chomping at the bit to get it, and they have been for the last 25 years. What we need to do now, what we're trying to do now, is reverse some of the damage they've already done. There was a swath of post-World War II 1950s garden apartments. They were old, but they weren't run down. They were well taken care of. And they were home to many of the lowest income people in North Kansas City. Heavily populated by Hispanics, Blacks, and others. Then the local immigration agency in this region started using it as a place for new immigrants. And it became the most diverse community in the state of Missouri, with Southeast Asians, Pacific Islanders, Eastern Europeans, all living in this one housing area, which comprised about a quarter of the city's population. In other words, a little over 1,000 people. After the city started getting its Harrah's casino money, it proceeded to do ethnic cleansing and essentially eliminated that whole housing project, literally tore it down. We tried to do some organizing to prevent that, but because of the fact that it was such a diverse community, it was so diverse that that very diversity worked against us bringing everyone together to fight it. And gentrification took place with huge amounts of city money input into it. Others have gone on like this for the last 20, 25 years. Now we are starting to make some inroads into people looking at, there are things besides housing and apartment complexes and developer inspired projects that actually mean community development. Community development is people development. And that's a concept that's been outside of our consciousness for a very long time. And we're beginning to work on that now. I've been a lone voice on the council for a while, but I'm beginning to get support on many of the issues. And in fact, in Ward 1, I'm not running this time, but there are 4 people running in the ward now for the April election. People who are agreeing with me. So we're seeing vast changes taking place. And I will be happy to answer questions and engage in a dialogue with anyone.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to have, after all the guests get the opportunity to speak, then we will have open questions. So thank you. Hold your thoughts. We're gonna definitely get back to you. Thank you for sharing that. Our next speaker is Wale Amusa. He's a longtime St. Louis activist and co-chair of the Campaign for Respect, Fairness, and Human Dignity. Welcome, Wale Amusa.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I first want to thank the organizers of this event, the Black and Green, Wednesday. I also want to thank the various organizations that have come together to present this very important issue to our community. Particularly, I want to thank Ms. Angie for the diligence and steadfastness in making sure that this event actually happens the way it's happening today. The issue of gentrification is a very, very old issue. It's one of the many issues that create havoc for working families in a country that is built on the supremacy of private property, white privilege, and of course, a form of decentralization that that gives municipalities, counties, and states the rights to determine what they feel is in the best interest of their various communities. The fact is that poor people in this country, especially people of color, African Americans in particular, have always had very, very serious issues when it comes to housing and sustainable, communities. From the old plantation shacks where a lot of slaves used to be housed, to the sweltering urban centers that are characterized by poor housing, absentee landlords, very insensitive governments that put more emphasis on the needs of the wealthy, and so on and so forth. Housing has always been a very, very serious and very, impactful issue in working class communities, especially in people of color communities. The simple fact is that human societies are very, very complex. And they're complex because human beings are complex. And we live in a society whereby institutional racism is a permanent feature, permanent aspect of life. It is the original cardinal sin that was hardwired into the constitution of the nation from its birth. But actually, it is a sin that even preceded 1776 and the formation of the American Republic. So when we talk about having self-sustained and viable neighborhoods, when we go back and look at the history of Black people in this country, we look at the history of poor people in this country, we see a history whereby consistently from one generation to another, the issue of viable neighborhoods, sustainable communities has always been a dream that has been mostly elusive. And even where these communities and neighborhoods exist, it is not an accident that we had a very vibrant community in St. Louis here called the Mill Creek.
Mhm.
And because of racism at the national, state, and local level, they decided to run a highway right through the middle of that neighborhood. That is how Highway 40 and Highway 64 was built in St. Louis. It ran through a very, very viable, culturally advanced African-American community that was so rich in culture and so on and so forth. We can look at the Ville neighborhood, a community that was the most thriving African-American community west of the Mississippi River for a long time. They had doctors, they had engineers, they had firefighters, they had all kinds of people from all walks of life, all kinds of socioeconomic, combinations. Very rich community. And guess what? That was the community that they decided to destroy by deliberately removing the largest economic institution in that community, the largest healthcare facility in the entire city of St. Louis, and the hospital that trained thousands of nurses, hundreds of doctors from all over the world. when they closed Homo G. Phillips Hospital in that community. These were not accidents. These were the continuation of the adverse and disparate impact of institutional racism on Black people. So it's not an accident that not just the Ville community that is now blighted and you have all kinds of empty lots, little or no businesses. It is the entire North St. Louis where you have communities that are not as vibrant as they were just 30, 40, 50 years ago. So when we talk about neighborhoods, we talk about gentrification. We have to start from the fact that gentrification is not an accidental development. It is a planned, programmed policy of neglect, refusal to put capital into these communities, deinstitutionalization, extreme redlining, misdirection of public funds that are supposed to go into communities of greatest need. And then once people have been forced out of those communities, then the vultures come back in. All of a sudden, there is an infusion of capital. But the capital are going to developers that have little or no roots in those communities. The capital is going to mostly white, male developers who can pick up property real cheap and then begin the process of trying to repopulate those communities, while the original people that live in these communities while it was thriving have been scattered. All of a sudden, many African Americans were scattered into North County. The ones that couldn't afford to buy homes in North County are now picking up, rental property in South St. Louis. So we have to come to the conclusion that this concept of gentrification is one that it is so insidious, but is a necessary part of the complicity between the real estate industry and the banking and financing industry and the political leaders who set policies in the city of St. Louis and other communities all over the country. It is not an accident that gentrification has taken place in Boston, Seattle, New York, San Francisco, DC, Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, Nashville, Denver, Austin, Portland, Baltimore, and we're beginning to see it right here in St. Louis here. Sometimes it's only in a particular zip code, not the entire neighborhood. Sometimes it's an entire neighborhood. Sometimes it's just something that happens where it starts almost in a very innocuous manner, whereby individuals are picking up little properties here that have been abandoned for many years and doing some rehab and stuff like that. The main characteristic of gentrification is that capital is made available to some while it is denied wholesome to particular sections of the community that are now unable to effectively develop their communities or maintain a hold in those particular communities. So you see some parts of the city of St. Louis, especially in North St. Louis. You see houses that have been vacant for the last 40 years. You see business strips, like in Western, area that have been vacant for 30, 40 years. You see all kinds of, incredible devastation. These are not particular endemic to Black people or to poor people. These are programmed, massive human rights violations that are designed to waste human potential at the expense of profiteers on a very massive scale. We cannot talk about self-sustained and viable neighborhoods because viable neighborhoods need viable families with decent, livable wages and benefits. Viable neighborhoods need decent schools with consistently caring adults at home and in the schools. Viable neighborhoods need viable commercial and financial, businesses and enterprises. And I can go on to say basically that what we're dealing with here is a comprehensive problem that requires a massive level of organization, a massive level of unity across all kinds of socioeconomic categories and ethnicities to reclaim public funds for proper development of communities, to redirect public funds, whether they direct federal or local or direct taxpayer funds, to reorder the priorities of governments and various municipalities to make sure that the driving force for all development is what is in the best interest of families, and children and working people in these communities. With that, I'd like to stop at this time as we get into the various topics that have been identified for this. And then we can talk more about how do we begin to move to address this incredible crisis that are confronting our communities all over the country today. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And I definitely have to agree myself that this is not a situation that we're dealing with is not by default, it's by design.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely by design. Last but not least, family, I'd like to welcome Taishara Masimba, who is running for St. Louis City automatic candidate for the 21st Ward. He is also has the endorsement of the Gateway Green Alliance.
All right, thank you very much, Coffee Right, and to all the organizers for this incredible event and this important topic. I just stated my name is Tachara Masimba, and I'm a County 1 in this alderman in the city of St. Louis. And with your support, I will be the next alderperson for this ward. I want to first talk about a project that I helped right here on the ground in St. Louis, which I think is a model for what we are discussing today: self-sustained economic development versus gentrification. I led an incredible project called the Black Power Blueprint, where we went right to the heart of the working class Black community of North St. Louis and began purchasing and renovating properties and creating all kinds of opportunity for that community, which is bled of all of its resources to begin to build an economy. So first we came in and we identified a 9,000 square foot building that had been vacant for a decade or so, we believe, and completely transformed that into a community center and banquet hall with offices on the second and third floor. And then directly across the street, I mean, this is a community with no economy in it. Right across the street, we demolished 2 buildings that could not be saved, transformed that space into an outdoor market with a garden and a beautiful event space. We also won a grant that will allow us to do a farmers market there that focuses on Black farmers and growers. And if it had not been for COVID this past year, we would have done it. We've also are near maybe about 98% complete with a 4-plex housing project for work that will serve as workforce housing for people getting home from prison and who will participate in a workforce program. And then we also purchased a building that needs to be renovated. It will become a commercial kitchen and cafe. So those who are participating in the housing can then have a workforce program in this culinary kitchen. We've also demolished 2 buildings that will serve as, that we'll build on top of to create a women's health and wellness center. We demolished a building that will become a basketball court. So this is a project we refer to as the Black Power Blueprint. And we call it the Black Power Blueprint because it is explicitly an anti-gentrification economic development project built largely with money, reparations money that we've won directly from white people who want to contribute reparations to Black self-determination. So we refer to it as an anti-gentrification economic development program. And the structure is that we have built a local steering committee with members right in the community. Some live right on the street, adjacent to and on the street where our community center is. They actually sit on the local steering committee. It is, again, right in the heart of an African working class community. We've also are in the process of creating a community development plan where we'll go out and get the community's input and then ratify this agreement. We through this process, we hired Black contractors, Black women. We even helped a contractor venture out and start his own business. So as was stated, much of the money was raised through reparations money. But even regardless of the reparations, we've gone directly to the community and won $5, $10, $20, $50 donations at a time for each one of these projects. We've also did web shows where we would give incredible presentations on things like the history of Black St. Louis, the colonial prison, et cetera, where we would bring historical context to the project that we're doing and help politicize people in the process of raising money and winning volunteers to contribute to this project. So the essence of what we understand gives birth to the need for a Black Power Blueprint is the fact that every contradiction that we face in the Black community is a consequence of an ongoing looting process by which all of our resources in 1,000 different ways are looted from our communities. And it happens, unfortunately, with the help of people who look like us, who work for the banks, the real estate speculators, the bondholders, the corporations, et cetera. So we brought this anti-gentrification economic development program also to corporations and foundations, where we secured some grants and developed some limited kind of partnerships with ruling class corporations. So we know many of those corporations responded to the resistance to the murder of George Floyd that we saw throughout this country and really throughout the world. And many of those corporations, of course, were led to give money, hoping that they could rescue capitalism and then redefine our struggle, and also to create a collaborationist sector to assume the leadership of our community. But we brought this anti-gentrification campaign to these corporations anyway. We built a grants team that was designed to apply for this kind of money and to use it to forward our anti-gentrification agenda. We won scores of volunteers to bring people into active participation in this project, people right in the community. So some came in and they painted, they helped build the garden beds and help plant seeds. They cleaned, they helped demo the buildings. It was an incredible kind of participation from volunteers. And then we held events and activities to further bring people into the political process. So as was stated, we held these incredible web shows around these incredible topics. We even have an ongoing web show called The Struggle to Achieve Black Power, where we analyze how it is we got in this situation and how the Black Power Blueprint can help get us out. We held these deeply political events, such as Black Power Poetry event that we, Coffee Right was a regular at. We also
remember that, and it was wonderful.
Yeah. And we'll be building a One Africa, One Nation outdoor market as soon as COVID lifts. We also hosted the Black is Back Coalition, which taught grassroots organizers and activists and regular people how to run for office on an anti-imperialist self-determination agenda. I participated at the school that they hosted before I ran for office. So we had people participate in regular political education events around all kinds of questions related to self-determination, political, international politics, class struggle, et cetera. And then we also engaged the community in fights and political fights that we had with the city. We brought the community into the process. So when we had the city and some of the older people denied the Black Power Blueprint the ability to purchase additional properties. To win this, economic self-determination in our community, we organized the community against this LRA land bank, against the speculators, the corrupt politicians. We brought them into the process. We held a press conference to indict the collaborating alder persons and the LRA land bank and call on them to release the properties. And some of the people were actually able to participate in this. We did outreach where we engaged the community by giving them the ability to sign petitions, attend meetings and hearings, and make phone calls and sign letters and write letters, and giving support to us or to oppose this or that policy, and we allowed them to participate in volunteer work days. So we did a scorched earth campaign many times over for many reasons to constantly politicize and win the community to a politic of anti-gentrification, self-determination, economic development. That's a significant part of what we did. And so this is what we see as, if you want to say self-sustained economic development, it is this anti-gentrification economic development project. And it's based upon a theory of how we got into the situation in the first place. So we say anti-gentrification economic development, and it recognizes that every contradiction that we face is tied to the fact that our resources are looted from our communities constantly. Even our intellectual resources constantly looted in 1,000 different ways by real estate speculators, banks, bondholders, corporations, etc. So when we fight for what we refer to as liberated territory. Another thing we built was a humongous 50-foot tall red, black, and green flag, where we put it right in the middle of the community. You can see it from a mile away. This is a symbol and a testament of liberated territory. And we have another community center, for example, in St. Petersburg, Florida, where we had influence over the police chief for a while, black police chief, and he actually called our community center the Uhuru House. He called it I forget what you call it when you're in a foreign country and you have a consulate or something. But anybody who would be in the Uhuru House could not be arrested. That's liberated territory. This is what we're fighting for. We understand that there really is no permanent sustained development under colonial capitalism. There's no such thing as peaceful coexistence. So we fight for what we call dual and contending power, which includes helping a revolutionary minority win the neutral, potentially revolutionary majority away from the collaborationist minority who are under control of the ruling class. So sustainable development, we say, is not really possible. What is possible is development that comes as a part of a process of sustaining a fight for resources, because capitalism, colonialism cannot occupy the same space as Black self-determination. We cannot control our resources in an economy that feeds off of taking our resources. So it's a permanent struggle for the people to win the space by taking it away from the colonial capitalist economy, taking it away from the real estate speculators, the banks, the corporations, and even the state. So we call this liberated territory, dual and contending power. We have these different terms for it. We built economic development designed to take back control of food, clothing, and housing. The colonial capitalist system controls those things. They appropriate the surplus value that we produce, and they use it to create and recreate life for themselves at our expense. So it is literal. It's literally true that we, Black people, die 18 years earlier in zip codes as little as 8 miles away from white populations. And that is theft of human life as a consequence of one group of people living at the expense of another group of people. Therefore, we cannot build some economic enclave on the plantation, nor can we unite with any fight for some peaceful coexistence on the plantation. Our fight must be to control the colonial capitalist system, or to push it into irrelevancy, to negate it, so that the Black Power Blueprint, for example, can act as an anti-gentrification dual and contending project. Our goal is to free up the forces of production for the benefit of the Black community. Now, how does this look in electoral politics? It looks like a platform with reparations and genuine economic development at the top of the platform. genuine economic development, that is anti-gentrification, that is power in the hands of the people. That is, it looks like a platform of community control of the LRA land bank and requiring that land bank that holds tens of thousands of properties at any given time to redistribute those houses back to the Black community and for it to come under community control, saying that you cannot land bank, you cannot systematically usher our properties into this savings account land bank so that you can redistribute them wholesale en masse to white developers who intend to gentrify us. It looks like a platform of community control of the police, so that the police can be in the custody of the people, and that we can create our own police force designed to contend with the state police. It looks like Black community control of schools, so that our education can be in the custody of us, the people, and so that it can be designed as an anti-gentrification, a bastion of anti-gentrification designed to contend with an education that is designed to miseducate us. So I know I got to wrap up. I want to say a couple more things. So the campaign that I'm running and Herdosa Columbia Bentham is running has two primary goals. One is to obviously get elected and to win office. But number two is to bring the masses of people who've been pushed out of political life back into political life and build a mass movement. So we're always fighting to push the parasitic economy into irrelevancy. That means the real estate speculators, the banks, the bond holders, the corporations, and the politicians who collaborate with them. There identify four models of economic development. One is a model where you have high-rise buildings and cafes. We've seen that before, leads to gentrification. One is where you have the pawn shops and the payday loans and these kinds of things. They just bleed the Black community and make us sick in 1,000 different ways. And then you have the Black capitalist model, where some Black people try to benefit a few Black people and their politically connected friends. But then you have the anti-gentrification, dual and contending, bottom-up, power blueprint-like model. So I'm really going to wrap up here, but I want to say I agree with the use of what I call liberal democratic tools, such as rent controls, using area median income stats to determine housing rent prices, using community land trusts and co-ops and small markets. But all of that rests upon this assumption that we have to build dual and contending power, anti-gentrification, self-determination, economic development, and it has to be an ongoing struggle to win space from the colonial capitalist space. And I'll end there. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I mean, wow, you really went over, but it was so interesting, and we're so proud of what you've done.
Sorry.
And what you're doing. We had to wrap it up. You'll be able to come back with answering some questions from the viewers as well. So save some of it. But the Black Power blueprint that we are really proud. I'm proud of it. I see it in action. So you're not just talk, but you guys have really actually have done a lot in your community. I guess right now what we need to do is just take some questions. If anyone have any questions.
Coffee, this is Barb, and I'm doing timekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
So on the questions and responses, what are we looking at in terms of time? A minute, 3 minutes?
We're looking at 2 minutes. If we can keep it down to 2 minutes on. Okay. And is it okay, Barb, if people can just unmute themselves and ask their questions, or do you prefer to come through the chat?
I think they can unmute themselves.
Awesome.
And what I will do is I will remind I'll just send the 2 minute, when time is up, I'll send that to everybody on the chat.
Okay, please be respectful of the time, family. 2 minutes, you got 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you.
Hey, Coffee, this is Don. Can you hear me?
Sure. Hi, Don. Thank you for.
Yeah, I got an announcement as a comment, and that is I want everybody to know that in a month on March the 10th, we're going to have the next Black and Green Wednesday program, which is going to commemorate the 5-year anniversary of the murder of Berta Cáceres. Now, most people do not know who she is in America, but she was an indigenous leader in Honduras who got a international award for protecting her community from a dam that was going to be built, and then the Honduran elite murdered her as a result of that. And she is a symbol of what sort of the flip side of what we're talking about tonight. We've been talking about driving people out of their homes, destroying communities inside the United States, but internationally, U.S. imperialism is even worse, with murdering people all over who are trying to defend their homes from huge projects, from dams, from all sorts of different places that the imperialists are trying to install in their communities and destroying the community as a result. So I hope that everybody will get an announcement for that. So I hope you're able to tune in again at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, March the 10th.
Wow, thank you for sharing that information with us, Don. We appreciate it. Does anyone else have any questions that they would like to ask our speakers?
I have one question, which, and I don't know who might have insight into this, but in where I live in University City, our community has suffered for many years because of a history of redlining, which I think now is illegal, or it's always been unethical. And I'm wondering if people can speak to the effects that redlining has had on communities, and if in fact that's still an informal problem, if it's still going on today.
And who are you directing that question to? Is that open for any of the
Yes,
guests to?
that's open for anyone, or maybe everyone would like, whoever would like to comment on that.
Okay, would anyone like to comment on that?
Sure. Redlining is one of the major items in the toolbox that is used to deliberately impoverish communities, but not just communities, but families and up and coming young people who are coming into the workforce. The fact is that these are crimes. They undermine the fundamental citizenship rights to equal treatment under the law. But because of states' rights and the fact that many of these financial institutions can direct particular laws to be passed that will allow a degree of tolerance or allow these kind of practices to go unchecked and unpunished, redlining, continues to be a major aspect of life in many of our communities. When federal dollars come to St. Louis and those dollars are misdirected into particular sections, while the areas of greatest need are ignored, even though those federal dollars that are coming into St. Louis are almost always coming because there are great areas of need. But after they get onto the ground here, we're not just talking about banks, we're talking about political leaders, we're talking about developers. So redlining must be fought. This is one of the things that becomes one of the must-do things when you talk about how do you create a self-sufficient, viable, neighborhood, is that there must be a constant, and I agree with my brother who spoke just a few minutes ago, there must be a constant, relentless, struggle against all these schemes that are designed to rob these communities, most of the time, of tax dollars or access to capital that they're supposed to get in order to have a more wholesome, better communities and a better quality of life. So you have to narrow the focus, identify the practices. Many of the practices are illegal. Sometimes you might have to file class action lawsuits, but nothing beats grassroots organizing and face-to-face, challenge to all those forces that are either directly pushing redlining policies or acting as if they're not aware about those policies and the negative impact that they have on communities.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that information. Wow, you are just a wealth of information, and not only information, but we just have so much respect for you. Some of the viewers are typing in stuff for you. You have been fighting this fight for so long, and we've gained a lot of ground, moved a lot forward, but we still have a task ahead of us. Are there any more questions that would anyone like to ask any of our guests? Please go right ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, I'd like to, excuse me. This question is to Shar and Hadosha in regards to the whole question of reparations. I think you tied that into the LRA. Break that down, if you will, in terms of the concept behind that. Excuse me.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, this is Tachara. So yeah, if we know that the thing that we face is that our community is always subject to a process, where our resources are being looted from under us. That you have one economy that lives at the expense of another economy. In other countries, people refer to that as colonialism. You have a foreign entity living at the expense of another. Then, you have this ongoing contradiction. It's essential to the platform to help people understand this contradiction as one. Our communities are being looted all the time. Our resources are being stolen. So part of that reparations claim is a massive infusion of capital into the Black community so that we can have businesses, general, et cetera. But it's also a return of this land that has been stolen from Black people in 1,000 different ways over a long period, saying that we have to have control, those properties, that land has to be returned to us. And we talked about redlining, but there are 1,000 different policies, 1,000 different mechanisms. We just saw one alderperson use his political influence to condemn a building of his opponent here. So use these code to condemn people. We see 100,000 different mechanisms by which the Black communities' homes and land is stolen. And we've had just saw this this question of tax abatements and TIFs, where you have $700,000 or so, and tax abatements going to wealthy developers in the last 15 years. So they get all of these free tax breaks. The money property taxes, they get breaks to buy up properties, and then they don't develop them, they don't create jobs, and they get these huge tax breaks on property. And then we lose our property for very minuscule tax payments that we often cannot afford. And so we're saying that in 1,000 different ways, our properties have been stolen from us, and they have used land banks systematically to accumulate properties so they can then redistribute those properties to white developers. So the last thing I'll say is real briefly is that in this city, you had a period where they used redlining, and then you had a period where they actually destroyed wholesale communities like Mill Creek. That was the kind of wave of urban renewal to just destroy community. And then you had a wave where now the new thing is to starve communities, starve, no resources, maybe police, maybe trash, maybe fire, and then accumulate our property into this land bank and then redistribute it to so-called developers. And in the process, you also get to push out this rapid population to ensure that a Ferguson or et cetera will never happen. So reparations, absolutely.
Thank you for,
And I got more detail about that on my website.
did that answer your question? Was that Zaki Baruti?
Yes, excuse me, yes, okay.
Okay, thank you, Tashara, for clarifying that. Would anyone else like to weigh in on that question? Or are there any more questions? Look like Herdosa, did you have
Yeah,
were you gonna comment on that?
I was, just briefly, I know.
Please do, you got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Yes, I really appreciate that question, Zaki. Reparations, this is, we've been struggling and calling on reparations. I know that we all don't need a history lesson here of why the Black community is owed reparations. A lot of the conversation that we just entertained and talked about are facts. It's not a conspiracy theory. These things have happened and we all agree. So I don't got to go there. And so, we heard people say that they want to defund the police. And I'm saying if you defund the police, then we're saying that the state get to say how they're going to refund or put the money somewhere. No, I'm saying that we're going to redirect the resources, the people, and we need to redirect the city budget. Gave the police department that Kim Gardner had, the prosecuting attorney, has just laid out a horrific list of the corruption in the police department. So we have a problem there. And then we're giving them too much resources. We have allotted $177 million to the police. We need to, take resources from that, $120 million, and take that $120 million into the program that I am saying for reparations, which will go to, people who will purchase a home, get a home in our community, these buildings, and the resources to fix it up, to own a home ownership. So then we organizing the people to own their own home, walking them through the process of this, bringing them back into political life, and being a homeowner to have a stake in their own community. So when we talk about reparations, this is something that I am willing to seriously fight for. Not as previous alder people that had a whole scheme for a dollar house with no plans for anyone to receive the house or get one or anything. And I'm talking about the masses, flock there because they want to own a home. And so we want to really say exactly how they're going to own their home by saying reparations now.
Thank you so much for contributing to that, because wow, thank you for sharing that information.
Hey,
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, this is Rev McCowan, member of Gateway Green Alliance and Minister General for UAPO. Good evening, everybody. I salute the panel. Of course, Wale Musa, you are one of my heroes. When I was growing up as a little bitty baby, you're one of the people that I looked up to because you were so mature and so articulate. And I wanted to grow up to be just like you. And then when I finally grew up, you moved into even more spectacular spaces. So continue the good work. I would encourage you. The nice young people that are moving in the direction of Black liberation, I salute you. You stand on the shoulders, I mentioned this in the chat, of the folks like Coffee, Wale, and Zaki, and certainly the leadership that you all are under right now with your great leader. And so that means you can see far and wide. You all are a manifestation of a dream and a prayer that I have been asking for. And I certainly thank God for you all putting those liberation theories into action. This is a real deal. So oftentimes, Black people run for office only to replace our white oppressors. Let me say it again. So oftentimes, Black people run and win offices only to replace our white oppressors. In other words, what they simply do is just it's a minstrel show. You just have blackface on, a white position, and they end up doing the very exact same things that the white oppressor was doing. So again, it is colonialism. But in our cases, our knucklehead selves, we don't even realize we're doing the colonialism. We don't realize that we're doing the exact same oppressive things that the white oppressor was doing. And so the white oppressor is not threatened by us because, they know they're going to be able to continue to gentrify our communities, continue to deny us loans, continue to pay their loans in our communities, and then to pay the police a large chunk of our taxpaying dollars to oppress us, to not listen to us, not to serve and protect us. And we get a position to continue to do that. And then when we get somebody like Kim Gardner saying, no, this is not going to happen no more, then you have them coming after them. Now, if your white oppressor is not coming, if you don't have a white oppressor coming after you, that means you ain't doing your job as a Black person. But let me talk to me real quick, not only about your position on your ability to win the race. Are you all running do you have your own party that's established in the city of St. Louis? Or are you running as are you going to be in a Democratic primary? Let me ask you that way. That's directed to the candidates that's running for office.
Okay, so Herdosa Bentham and Bashara Resemble, would you like to answer or comment on that question?
Yeah, we can everybody hear me okay? I just put headphones on. Yeah, actually this year the city, I hope I'm answering your question because I know I'm familiar with you, so I know you're up on stuff, but St. Louis City moved to a nonpartisan election. Gotcha. Where so we actually won't be able to even declare a party. And then I forgot what the other piece of that is called, but then so there'll be a primary election and then the general election. And of course, it's usually people mostly dominated by the Democratic Party, but you don't identify your party anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. One follow-up question. Do you have your party affiliation on your flyers, handouts, and all that stuff?
No, we don't. But it's I'm not sure why you're asking, but that's an important question, at least in my opinion, at least in terms of how you go about making your fight. Because one thing I think we've been able to do is that we have not had to rely on the Democratic establishment.
Yeah.
So we've been able to criticize the system in a way that those who rely on the Democratic establishment have not been able to. And we're fighting every day to build a base that really does not require us to rely on the Democratic establishment. And yet we have received some endorsement from various aspects of the Democratic establishment, which has really been upsetting to some of our opponents.
Gotcha.
Sounds like to me it's a people over party situation.
Yeah, and the people need their own party, actually. That's the thing. Yeah.
Coffee, Coffee, can I?
Please do.
I want to direct this to Wale Amusa. Hey, Wale, you're a part of the Community Justice Coalition. Would you make an announcement, excuse me, about upcoming event this Saturday in regards to the whole mayoral election?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Zaki. As many of you do know, there is a nonpartisan electoral process that my brother Tishawa, just made reference to. Basically, there is a primary election in March. And if nobody wins the election outright in terms of at least 50 plus, then the top two will go in a runoff in April, in a runoff election. The top two candidates will. We're having the Community Justice Coalition, which is made up of about 15 different community organizations from different aspects of the community. We'll be hosting a mayoral debate this coming Saturday. I believe it starts at 11 o'clock in the morning. I can make the information available to the organizers of this event so that you can distribute to your various constituencies to participate. There are 4 candidates that are running: Mr. Shara Jones, the current city treasurer, Ms. Cara Spencer, who is an alderwoman in the city of St. Louis, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Jones, who appears to be a financial, development, a kind of expert. And then there is the president of the Board of Aldermen, Mr. Louis Reed. Unfortunately, Mr. Reed has refused to participate in the debate. So only 3 of those candidates are going to be participating in the debate. We encourage everyone to please, check it out. These are the same people that have to deal with changing or reordering budget priorities. Our friend from that's running for office in the 3rd Ward is talking about reordering police budget priorities, public safety budget priorities, St. Louis City budget priorities. It's important to have mayors that are committed to this kind of shifting the focus away from militarization into serving real people's needs. So that is this Saturday, February the 6th at 11 o'clock. If you need more information, please let Brother Zaki know. He's going to be one of the facilitators of the debate. And some of us are going to be in the audience, maybe asking questions.
So it is.
May I ask?
I'm sorry. Is this like Zoom? I just had.
It is virtual.
Okay.
It's going to be on Zoom. It's a Zoom debate, and anyone can, from the convenience of your own home, participate.
Yes.
Listen to the debate, ask questions, or get into the chat room and offer some suggestions, and then follow up. The election is literally about a month from now, and this is a very consequential elections for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my question as well. So we'll be on Zoom. So I guess if we can put that out on Facebook as well. And Zaki, if you can actually email everyone to give us the link, and
Please.
that would be great. So we'll be able to participate in that. Are there any more questions for the candidates or our guests, or would anyone else like to ask any more questions? Any of the viewers?
This is Angie. I would like to come back to our topic, and I would like to know more about, kind of how the 2 candidates can bring, or also if Tony can weigh in on that, how to bring workforce development. I mean, kind of jobs to the community, how you can do that, and also how to fight for resources at City Hall.
Thank you for that question. Herdosa Benson, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I can start off. Okay. Yeah, I think, point 1, I just talked about reparations. So I'm gonna move to the next point because it's all about creating jobs. So one of the things that we struggle and we all are so sick of fighting for, to clean up our alleys. And this is so redundant that we continue to say, clean up our alleys. Like, we pay taxes, we pay trash bills. We deserve for our democratic right for our trash to be picked up. And we know that this can be done because we see that they pick up trash and their alleys are clean on the south side, but the north side looks completely different. So one of the things about cleaning up the alleys, we need jobs. We need to create jobs for people who need jobs. So we can have a whole new department that's in the sanitary department that just specifically work on cleaning alleys. This is creating jobs right there. When we're talking about, a review board, Black community control over the police, what we're saying is that people in the third ward should have community courts. I really strongly believe that the people have to have power over their life, meaning that, we shouldn't have to stand before 12 jurors that don't come from my community, don't understand what the issues is in my community, etc. But if we had people that they would get paid to be on this board, that the people unite and, put in place to be on the board, and then they can handle like certain issues like a parking spot that we don't get into it, and my neighbor and I, and sometimes these result in death. Well, we can deal with these issues, and the people are brought into organized to be able to deal with their own issues in their own community. I know that if I have to stand before 12 people in my community, the church mother and my neighbor, it feels different when they say you are guilty and this is your punishment. And it feels different to them because they know me, they know what my issues were. And so the punishment will be something that comes back to the community. And so that's creating jobs as well. And so what I'm basically saying, and when we're talking about creating jobs, I'm talking about organizing the third ward to participate in building a community back up. Not just someone else doing it, but the people have to be brought back into a situation where we have ownership of our own communities in our own life. And, even with the school board, we have a school board where someone gets a huge salary and everybody else don't get paid. You know what I'm saying? And these people, I sat there doing and listened to the school board, and these are very powerful people that really care about our students that deserve a salary. So I even think that we have to restructure that, where we say Black community control of the school, the people that is responsible for teaching and educating our kids should be getting a salary, not one person get a lower salary. That's my time. But these are just some of the different things that I am talking about doing in the third ward to create jobs, and many, many more. And you can find more about my plan on my website, votecolumbii.org. And you can reach out to my campaign and you can further the discussion about creating jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And would you like to address that question to Shara?
Yes, and please cut me off if I go over. I've been very undisciplined. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just the thing is that my platform is back, building a movement to revitalize the culture and economy of Black St. Louis, and we got to build a new economy, and everything has to align to that new economy. Meaning, the schools have to teach a curriculum that aligns to the new economy. We have to have Black community control of schools in the first place. The various different government offices and positions have to be funded to align to that new economy. Then funds have to be allocated, federal money, block grants and whatnot have to be allocated. You can't gut the budget of all economic development incentives and all social programs, and then continue to go into, for the city to continue to go into debt and then try to use all the money to pay debt. We got to build partnerships with businesses, particularly Black businesses and trades, unions and whatnot. And then we got to be on the ground, helping to build an economy, recruit people into this new economy, so we can, that's one of the things that we did with the One Africa, One Nation marketplace, where people can actually, small businesses can come and set up businesses. We will expand the housing that the African Indian Workforce Program housing that I helped develop. And then, the commercial, those kinds of projects have to be funded. They have to be expanded. It has to be community driven. And then we got to align, all of the institutions and offices and the people to make that happen. But it's got to stop the bleeding in our community, stop the bleeding of our resources, and build a new economy with African workers at the center.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. So did he address your question, Angela? You wanted to know how does he plan on putting jobs in the ward upon if he's elected? Did that answer your question?
Uh, yes, it did. But I also would like to know, kind of how you can fight for resources, very concrete, fight for resources in City Hall. What can be done about, getting those resources in the community?
Did you understand? Did you hear that question, Tashara?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm trying to take notes, but I think the city has Columba. You said it. It has a budget of 1.2 billion dollars, and the budget is not going toward any kind of thing that will provide economic development. I think the budget has to be fought for, and I know we got to look at the mayor and comptroller to be able to make that happen. But I think that's where it starts, and we cannot continue to pass budgets where 50 to 60% of all the resources go toward police. So I think, of course, we got to use the existing budget, but then we also have to be able to access federal funding. And right now, the statistics I read say that the vast majority of community block grant money, for example, that goes to the predominantly black wards, go toward social programs, and almost none of the money goes toward concrete, big brick and mortar economic development. So I think that has to be addressed. And of course, tax incentives cannot bleed out our budget anymore and go to these developers. And I'm not quite sure how I would apply that toward the development of, community-driven economic development. And then one critical aspect that we know is at the top of our platform is reparations to the Black community. And then lastly, the community itself, has to be galvanized to begin to buy into the development of an economy built from the ground up. And that's one on the ground in 1,000 different ways, some of which I named in terms of the Black Power Blueprint, but it can be done at a higher level. So those are some of the things I see.
Wow, thank you.
If you have a question, this is Elston again. So this question is to all the panelists, and if anyone would like to respond to it. There was a move to sell the airport. And those monies for the sale. Now, nobody's going to buy the airport right now because of this COVID, so that's off the table right now. But there was a movement to sell the airport, and there was going to be a charter amendment to the St. Louis Constitution, if you will. So it's not like a board bill where the board of aldermen get to change it once it gets approved. They'll actually have to come back to the voters and amend the amendment in order to make any changes to that particular constitution. To that Constitution amendment. Now, with that being said, those monies were going to be put in the trust for education, for development in disadvantaged communities, low-income communities. So we know we're talking about North St. Louis. What are you all's position on that? Because some of the feedback I got from a lot of our Black leadership, as well as our progressives. Now, there's a different progressive, white progressive, in St. Louis. The folks you have on this forum right now today are real white progressives. They're really Black allies. But you do have folks who go up under the umbrella of white progressive. They say the right things, but whenever it comes to the rubber hitting the road, they really vote against us and do things against us on a regular basis. And actually even try to make sure that we're not empowered. So with that being said, what is your position on the sale of the airport, in case that comes back up in the future?
So that question is directed towards Herdosa and Tashara, is that correct?
Any panelists that like to take it, actually.
Well, I would definitely say that as elected as the alderperson, I would be dead set against us allowing a private person come in and own our the means of production, and that's what we're fighting for. So I would will be against that. And just to piggyback on what Chara was saying on how to fight, like seriously, through this whole process and before this, as being an activist, one of the things that I have led the charge of is, fighting against the keeping the 28 wards. Saying that we need to keep 28 wards and not cut it to 14, because this is an attack against the Black community. And all these things, the airport, saying that we want to merge the city and the county, allow police officers that don't live in the city to come and police us. All these are part of the gentrification, to continue to push gentrification. All these things are an attack against the whole Black community. And so I would be against, allowing an outside private person to be able to control the means of production of what comes in and out our airport. That would not be a good move. And so when we're talking about the budget that Chara just mentioned, we got to fight for that budget. We just had people allow spy planes, and the person that I'm running against said that he voted yes because he wanted to simply figure out how a billionaire made his money. These are crazy and outrageous things that are happening. And I want you to think that because people talk a certain way and dress a certain way that they were so smart. But the more I study and watch the Board of Aldermen, I realize that maybe even my 8-year-old can go down there and make better decisions.
Yeah.
I'm all for lowering. I'm all for lowering the age of voting to 5 years old. Actually.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that too, if I can, and I just think that this whole claim that you're gonna use this money, I think that's short-term ship. I think it's opportunism. I think it's like all the persons who support that are like corporations who need to generate profit every quarter. And they want to be able to come before the people and claim they did something, and so they'll make this long-term sacrifice for a really short-term gain. And I don't really know the details of the evidence or argument, but some of the senior alderpersons like Sharon Tyus were very clear that we'll never see this money, and we won't see it. And I'm convinced that even you can trace, you'll be able, even if you can trace the money to having gone somewhere in the Black community, it won't make a tangible difference. And what happens is, you cannot, these finance people, these billionaires, they understand the concept of time value of money, so you giving up this 50-year asset for, real short-term gain that the people will never see. And the other thing that's happening is you're strengthening the political and economic power of the very capitalists that bleed you. So you continue to sell assets, they will continue to drive up prices, to lower services on those assets. They'll continue to use their power and influence to expand, to capture more public assets, and to capture more sources of public revenue, tax money. And then, of course, they're going to continue this policy of gentrifying out of existence the entire Black community. So I would absolutely not even think of supporting something like that. And it's egregious that we have these junior opportunist alderpersons who continuously side with billionaires for these short-term kinds of benefits.
Wow. Well, thank you all for clarifying with everyone your position on that, because that topic is very, very hot right now. As you all know, I think Friday will be the final vote on that, and everybody's just sitting on their hands waiting to see what direction that's going to go. So it's so important to know you all stance on that, because if you are elected, then after that 18-month contract with the 3 spy planes that will be circulating around our city. My understanding is that they're going for, I think, a 3-year contract as some type of obligation to that. And we really need to know, are you all fighting for it or fighting against it? So thank you for making it clear without a question that it's not something that you support. Appreciate that. Are
Yes,
there any more questions?
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you identify yourself? I'm sorry.
Yes, my name is Ona Zanea Shatella.
Thank
Can you hear
you.
me? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
thank you. Please
Yes,
go ahead.
yes, thank you. I know that our Black businesses are suffering, you know, in the north side of St. Louis. And we have heard of this concept called that we should buy Black. And I've heard both candidates talk about buy Black power. Can you kind of like expand on what buy Black power is and how is that different from simply buying Black?
I'll start, and Chachara, you can finish. Thank you for asking that question. It's very, very important. And I think that in this conversation, we have identified that it's two different kinds of Black. You know, we have heard that we have had Black leaders, and someone, I believe, said that we have Black leaders. They look Black, but they just replace our white oppressors with the same concept and the same theory as them. So when we talk about buying Black, when people say, you know, we got to buy Black, what do that really mean in the material way? How do that actually advance our struggle? It don't. If that Black person is involved in capitalism and doing the same thing as if you went to the white store to do, then it don't change a thing. So we saying, don't just buy Black power, buy from people that's invested in building up the community. Is that Black store invested in doing things in their community, supporting their community, you know, standing beside, what's going on in their community? They treating people with respect. They buying from other Black businesses and sharing information with Black businesses, etc. That's different. So we have to go beyond just saying buy Black and say that we have to buy from people that support the community that they are in. And so that's why I am a member of a movement saying don't just buy Black power, as one of the leading designers of a revolutionary line called Uzi. And so, we are invested in, giving back and being a part of our community, uplifting young girls and being able to see themselves as beautiful. We do things in our community by having gentle use clothes, because everybody knows that the fashion industry is one of the most wasteful industries there is. So we take gentle used clothes and we refurbish it and put positive things on our clothes like fist up, fight back, touch one, touch all, to just promote the struggle of liberation on your clothes. So I definitely support buying Black power, and want to build more Black businesses in our community as well.
Awesome.
Chachara.
Yeah, I'll just add that some of what was already said, but yeah, we talked about building an anti-gentrification economy, and I think bringing existing Black businesses into the fold of that new economy and that new movement, and really winning them to participate fully in the objectives of building a new anti-gentrification economy, a ground up, bottom up economy is critical, because most Black business owners are, small, many of them are struggling, and many of them are in business because they want to help the community. They want to be a part of generating wealth and opportunity in the community, and many just need to be introduced to the possibility of being brought into some form of actual organization. That could be into an African Independence Workforce Program that I helped initiate here in St. Louis as part of the Black Power Blueprint. It could be a Black Business Association, but you bring them into associations where they can pool their resources, they can pool their political influence, they can pool their products, their services, their skills, and then this is how you begin to deal with this whole question of workforce development, but it's also how you win the community in 1,000 different ways to fight for the objective of building an economy that benefits the vast majority of people. We've seen a few alderpersons put ideas, not just ideas, but begin to create like a Black capitalist kind of economic development model where, for instance, they go to the LRA, they use the same strategy that Paul McKee used to get an option on 283 properties without any kind of plan for a handful of people. And we know people want to be part of business development, but what we are saying in this, with this concept of buy Black power, is that you have to build an economy that benefits the vast majority of Black people and not just a few connected people.
So basically, I know the tagline is buy from each other and sell to everyone.
That's it.
Okay, well, hey, we're kind of running short on time. We're down to probably about the last 15 minutes. Is there anyone else that has a question? And we need to keep it to 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, this is Don. I wanted to applaud both of the candidates for your very strong position on the stadium. And I'm sorry, on selling the airport. It's really a case of selling the goose that laid the golden egg. You know, there are the very, very short-term benefits, and then all these things that they promised, a new set of politicians would come in, and none of this stuff promised over the long term would ever happen, and then the city would be out of the funds. And I think it's very important to remember that this is a global phenomenon. It's not just St. Louis. It's not just the United States. It's all over the world, and that's really one of the main things we're going to be covering next month when we talk about Latin America, because these companies come in and they tell people, you let us build the dam on your river. You know, you let us build this facility here. You let us dig a mine. What it does, it totally destroys the ability of people to do farming. It destroys the ability of communities to be self-sufficient. And it drives people out of the country. And that's why there's such extreme violence in so many Latin American countries. The corporations come in, promise something. They do everything they can to divide a community. And people are desperate. They don't have money for medical care. They don't have schools. They don't have the roads. They don't have the basic necessities of life. And the big corporation says, if you just let us build this dam or let us dig this mine, then you'll have all of this stuff. So then they dig it, they dam it, then they leave after they've made their money off of it, and a different set of people come in and own it. And they say, well, we never made those promises. And so, yeah, the whole thing about selling the airport, I mean, if the airport is sold, a few years down the line, the revenue will be lost, and those promises are simply not going to be kept.
This sounds like North St. Louis.
We've seen that over and over again. And so thank you, Don, for sharing that with us. We'd like to thank, is there any more questions? We have time for one more question.
I have a question. Can you guys hear me? This is Queen.
Yes, please.
I wanted to ask about the closing of all these schools that's taken place. And I know there's more to come. And how do you, like in your ward, is there a elementary school? Is there a high school? And how do we prevent any future closings and maintaining, the schools that do exist? Let's do any of the panels. I was looking at the two candidates, if they would, respond.
Mm-hmm. Tachara, you want to go first?
Yeah. So what's the final question? How do we prevent future closings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we've been on the front line fighting this. Not just, people have fought it, but we've been really defining this struggle because people began first talking about, just the fact that they didn't want the schools to close. And then you had some people who were able to say, the schools are closing because of, this whole notion of school choice, where you have charter schools that receive public funding, which contributes to the defunding of the schools. You have tax abatements that are going to these real estate speculators who buy property in North St. Louis and then sit on it and don't do any development, don't provide any jobs. And we were able to say that, but we're also able to say that this is one aspect of the entire looting of the Black community. And that's the thing that we are constantly looking at today. And that's what we look at when we see the schools. We see that, I think I stated earlier, nearly $700,000 in free tax money and tax breaks have gone to these wealthy developers in the last decade or so. And this is money directly taken from the, from our school system, so that our children can no longer have any possibility of even having books in the classroom, up-to-date equipment. And so our children don't have a future. They don't have an education. They don't have an economy. We have to be able to take back our resources from these parasitic, real estate speculators and corporations who bleed our communities every day. And then we have people at the Board of Aldermen, some of whom who look like me and Columbi, and I don't know what you look like, but who look like us, but who work for the status quo. And that's why we need new leadership. That's why it's just so important that I'm able to get in office, that Herdosha Columbi Bentham is able to get into office.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really, really want to say that when we talk about these schools, it's near to my heart, very, very near to on me and Chichara's platform. And we have been hosting rallies and just really raising it up. And I just want to say that we have to go all the way back to when the DSEG program was introduced to our parents, with the first part of the, turn down our schools, when they lied. And this is why we can't go along with anything that's being said, because they took resources out of our schools and put out in Creve Coeur. And I was part of the DSEG program. I lived in the city and I was bussed out, and I experienced being out there what happened to so many people that look like me, that got put in special phase 2 rooms and demoralized from learning and found learning as a very hostile situation. So when we talk about our schools being shut down, and I'm a mom, I'm a parent, and I have 2 beautiful, smart daughters, that was a struggle in the 3rd ward trying to find a school for my child to go to, when education is very important, because I got a raw deal. And I didn't want that for my kids. I didn't want them to graduate from high school and barely know how to read with scholarships, because you just learn how to tap dance and be exactly how white America wants you to be, and they pass you along. And I didn't want that for my kids. So we really have a serious problem. But the problem with our school system is the looting problem and the greedy politicians that we have in office that is not looking out for all of our kids. For all the person to say, well, and be over the this commission board to say that, well, no schools in my ward was closed down. So, no. Even though I'm the alderperson in the 3rd ward, I'm concerned about the whole north side. And I wouldn't want to sign anything or do anything at the expense of a different ward where they have little Black and brown children at, or any children for that matter. So therefore, we have to really understand that when we are going into that poll, that box, and we electing people for office, we could not elect people because we like them. We have to elect the men and women that will do the right thing for our schools, that we can hold accountable. They can say it on a political line, because it's a culture of just being able to tell your story and, I like you, you like me, and we went to the same church, and then somehow you are in office for 40 some years. No, 40 years and our community look the way it look. New leadership, please.
So we're calling for Black community control of schools and saying that our schools in our community have to become bastions of anti-gentrification. And so as such, we know that our schools cannot be looted. Money cannot go to developers because we have built Black community control of schools, making them bastions of anti-gentrification. And then the curriculum can be centered around building and revitalizing a new culture and economy for the Black community in North St. Louis. And that's the basis for the entire city to be able to have a just economy.
Thank you so much. We might have time for one quick question. One more question. Is there someone that we haven't heard from that has a question that's just dying to get it out there? Please speak now or forever hold your peace.
Why they not speaking just around the schools? You know, right now I have a homeschool collective because of COVID. And so many parents, you know, they can't stay at home with their kids and they need to make sure that their 15-year-old and 16-year-old are logging into school. And so I really got a real deep insight of our young people. And one of the missing ingredients in our kids' education is love. Kids learn and their ability to want to learn in environments with love. And so many of the young people that I work with during the summer and right now, grade levels have went up 2 grade levels, being in my home, where I can add in certain things with the curriculum. So they do the school curriculum, and then we have, revolutionary leaders on the wall where we get to talk about things like economic development. What did that mean versus capitalism, socialism? And 8 and 10-year-olds are grasping these things, and they are coming up with plans of action of what they want to bring to their community. And it drives me to say that even when we're talking about rebuilding our community, high school children should be graduating not only with a high school diploma, but they should be graduating with certificates of being able to come back to their community to be a welder, a CNA, a medical assistant. A lot of times they go to these trade schools that rob them, and they can get this skill right in high school and come back into their community to be able to bring something. And so we have to make an investment in our children, and we really have to do our due diligence to make sure that happens. We have to invest in them, in our children, and stop seeing them as monsters and birds, because they want to learn. The little young people at my school, they tell me all the time, like Columbi, like they grasping like these concepts in these books and stuff, and they come up with homework. You know what I'm saying? They like, I said, well, we're done today. Chill. No, I think we should write this because they loving the idea of learning, because they see a future for the first time.
Appreciate your passion. I am so impressed with you. I think everyone is. Thank you all. We are running out of time. I just want to say thank you to all the guests, to all the participants, our viewers out there. We really appreciate you. Of course, thank Barbara, thank John, thank Angie, thank all the team for putting this together. I know it was a lot of work and effort. We've learned so much more about the candidates as well as just the guests, speakers. You all have enlighten us and on a lot of things that a lot of viewers probably had no idea about. We definitely have to thank our tech support for Joe. Thank you so much for putting this, covering us, when we had a few technical difficulties. And just, I want to remind everyone to please consider joining the Black and Green Wednesday on March the 3rd. We'd love to have everyone there. And we're definitely going to have to do this again. Just thanks again. I just really appreciate everyone. And with the candidates, congratulations on just having the strength and the compassion and being brave enough to stand up, being courageous enough to identify issues, because we have to face, there are definitely issues in the city of St. Louis, and to identify them and wanting to do your part in addressing them. We thank you all so much for that. With that being said, I guess this is a wrap. So thanks again.
And thank Coffee Wright for doing great moderating.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you all. And once again, just thank everyone for tuning in. Is there any last words, Wally Amusa or Tony? We didn't get back to you all. Are there any last words at all that you want to share with us? We have a few seconds left.
Well, I just want to say that I am so deeply honored to be in the presence of these two very dynamic candidates that are coming up with fresh ideas that are deeply rooted in great love and faith in the people, and the fact that when people are united and they organize and they have clearly defined agenda that speaks to the collective constitutional, social, and economic interests of the community, that some victories are going to be realized. So I want to thank, the organizers of this event, to let you know that this is a very great, is a great forum, and I'm deeply honored to have been a part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
To the two candidates, I know how difficult it can be to get out there and convince people that we can't continue to do business as usual, because business as usual is not helping us develop our communities or the people around us, the people who need us. So go out there and keep that fight going.
Thank you.
Well, once again, thank everyone for joining us, and hopefully we'll all get together again before election. I'm Coffee Right, and that's right, I said it. Good night, everyone.
Night,
Good night, all.
Bye-bye.
everyone. Good night.
Awesome.
Awesome, awesome.
Great, 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 great.